drama of the live auction.
Hello. Hey. 就是把被你弄坏了，可以。A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the team at Buxton Real Estate, welcome to the auction of 2A Charlton Street in Blackburn North. For those of you who don't know me, Calvin Chan is my name. Also the listing agent alongside Wen Yu, who has been working tirelessly throughout this entire campaign. We also have my colleagues here today, Jim, here to assist you with any questions throughout the auction process. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the vendors for entrusting us with the sale of this prime piece of real estate behind us. To the neighbours in the crowd, thank you for coming and for making Charlton Street one of the best places to live in Blackburn North. To the bidders in the crowd, thank you for coming and wish you all the best in the bidding procedure. And to the one lucky buyer, we congratulate you in advance on your astute purchase. This auction will be conducted in accordance with the rules and any additional conditions that are made available before the commencement of the auction. As the auctioneer, I'll be indicating bidders upon request and the right to place bids on behalf of the sellers, otherwise known as vendor bids. If and when I decide to place those bids, I'll simply say vendor bid. This auction prohibits false bids, prohibits nature disruptions by bidders attempting to prevent others from bidding, and provides fines for misconduct. And last but not least, when this paperwork hits my hand and this property is deemed sold, I'll absolutely take no late bids and offers beyond that point. If you're successful here today, all that will require from you is a little 10% deposit of the full purchase price. And the settlement time, you pick the time frame that suits you best, but the sellers have been quite flexible here today, anywhere within the vicinity of 30 through to 90 days, unless prior arrangements have been made with you beforehand. In an instance where you're bidding against vendor bids, you have two options. You're not bidding against the highest vendor bid, which means that you'll decrease your chances of being successful here today, as we'll get to negotiate with multiple parties afterwards. On a positive flip side, however, is that if you do bid against the highest vendor bid, you earn yourself the exclusive right to negotiate with the sellers, and statistically speaking, you increase your chances of being successful here today. Behind us, ladies and gentlemen, a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, single garage, and off-street parking in the driveway as well. Beautifully presented and low-maintenance living welcomes you in when you walk through the home, ladies and gentlemen, and in the heart of Blackburn North, a brick home welcomes you, ladies and gentlemen. With your close proximity to Blackburn High, North Blackburn Shopping Centre strip as well. In between Box Hill Central, Westfield, Doncaster, train stations are serviced by Blackburn, Laburnum, Box Hill as well. Close proximity to Eastern Freeway, so it's a very handy location. You probably don't even need to drive a car again if you do live here. So enough from me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure you're not here to hear me talk. We're here to help you buy now. So where can I see a fair and reasonable start now for 2A Charlton Street in the heart of Blackburn North now, ladies and gentlemen? Where can I see an opening bid, opening offer now? I'm in your hands. You tell me where you would like to start. I don't mind anywhere at all now, ladies and gentlemen. $700,000. Welcome to the bidding here now with a strong knockout offer of $700,000 front and sorry. 10, thank you, sir. Welcome you in at 710 and back against you, sir. 710. At 710 now, increments of 10 at the moment at $710,000. 20, thank you, sir. 20 back against you at 720 now. At 720. At $720,000, 30 to welcome you back in, sir. At $720,000 at the moment. At $720,000 now, what do you say? At 720 now. 720 to my opening bidder here across the road. At 720, back against you, sir. Can I say 730, tempt you back in? At $720,000 at the moment. At $720,000 now. Gentlemen here holding the bid. Holding the offer at $720,000. 25 here now, 725 back against you, sir. At $725,000 at the moment, 725. My recommendation is to go back up in pence. For a little bit of distance against your competition here today. $725,000 across the road. At 725. At 725 now. 30 or more to get you back in. At $725,000 now. At 725, gentlemen's offer here at 725. At 725 back against you, sir. Can I see another bid to get you back in front to my opening bidder here? At $725,000 at the moment. At $725,000 now. 730 back in front, 730 back against you. Another 535. At 735, 40 back in front. Can I see 45, sir? 740 across the road here. At $740,000 here. At $740,000 now, 45 to get you back in front. At $740 here. That's $740,000 now. At 740 now, you need to know if you're in or out now at 740 tomorrow, you can bid it out. That's yes, you sir, sure, at $740,000 at the moment. That's $740,000 here. That's $740 across the road. That's $740,000 where you need to know now. At $740,000 at the moment. That's $740,000 now. No late bids, no late offers now at $740,000 across the road. You can change your mind at auction, sir, at $740,000. Going to fence you back in. Got an election here today, ladies and gentlemen, which means that after the election, there's going to be more confidence in the marketplace. Usually there's a little bit of uncertainty just before the election, so now's the perfect time to buy. That's $740,000 now. Across the road here at $740,000, going to call it 3 times. So I'm sure you're sure now. First call now, $740,000 now. Second opportunity now at $740,000. For the third and final call now, that's $740,000. In a out now, need to know, that's $740,000 here. Sorry? 742,500. That's 742,500. 742,500. That's 742,500. 45, 745, back in front, 745. That's 745 now across the road, that's 745. That's $745,000 now back against you, sir, at 745. That's $745,000. Shanghai, what do you say? Great value buying in the heart of Blackburn North at $745,000 at the moment, at 745. That's $745,000 here. That's 745, 750, going to tempt you back in, sir. That's $745,000 at the moment. That's $745,000 now, need to know, ladies and gentlemen. That's 745, holding the bid here across the road to my opening bid up. That's $745,000. First call now at 745. Second opportunity now at $745,000. For the third and final call now, that's $745,000. I'll take car bids as well if you want, sir. That's $745,000 at the moment. That's $745 across the road. That's $745,000 now. Going to call 3 times here, ladies and gentlemen. At $745,000 at the moment. That's $745 now. First call now at $745. Second opportunity now at $745,000. Sorry? 746. I welcome you here at $746,000. 47 back against you at 747. That's 747 now across the road. That's 747, so what do you say now? That's 747. That's 747 now back against you. Can I say a 48? Lucky number 8 perhaps. At 747 now. 47 and a half. We're going up increments of $1,000 here. That's 747 and a half, okay? 49, did you say? 49, here, 749. That's 749. That's 749. That's 749, minimum $1,000 bids here. That's 750, thank you. That's 51. That's 751, back against you, Jim, 751. That's $751,000 here. That's 751. 52. That's $752,000 here. That's 752. 55. 55, back against you, man, 755. That's 755. 56. 56 back against you, sir. That's 756. And you as well at 756 now. That's $756,000 now, 756. That's $756,000 across the road at 756, sir. Can I fence you back in with another $1,000 perhaps? That's $756,000 here. 59, thank you, that's 759. That's $759,000, 60 to get you back in, man. That's $759,000 at the moment. That's $759,000 now. Can I see 760 perhaps? That's $759,000 here. That's 760, thank you, welcome you here. That's $760,000 to interest at 760. That's $760,000. I think there's been about 4 or 5 of you in it and bidding today at $760,000. That's $760,000 holding the highest bid. That's $760,000 now. Sir, can I tempt you back in at 760 at the moment? That's $760,000 here. That's 760 on my right. That's 760. 760 now. What do you say, sir? At $760,000. Need to know at 760 here. 61, thank you, sir. At 761. Back against you, Jim. Back against you, man. 761 at the moment. That's $761,000 here. At 761. That's 62, thank you. At 763. 63, Jim. What do you say now? 763. That's $763,000 now, ma'am. here, what do you say? At $763,000. That's $763,000 here. 64, thank you, at 764. That's $764,000. Any last minute bidders here at $764,000. Across the road here, on my right hand side at 764. At $764,000, sir, what do you say? At 764. That's $764,000 now. Can I see 65 or more? That's $764,000 here across the road. That's $764,000 now. 764. Going to call it 3 times, so I'm sure and you're sure now. That's $764,000. First call now, 764. Second opportunity now at $764,000. For the third and final call now at $764,000 here. 65, thank you, sir, at $765,000 and back in front, back against you, man, 765. That's $765,000 here. That's $765,000. You missed out at other auctions before. Don't miss out here today. That's $765,000 here. Standing here. That's 765. That's 765, Yang. Any bids here on my left-hand side? Need to know. That's 765. 6, thank you. That's 766. That's $766,000, sir. What do you say? That's $766,000 here on my left-hand side. That's 766 now. Someone round us up to 70, perhaps at $766,000 here. That's $766,000. Sir, what do you say? Man, at 766. At 766, still great value buying in the heart of Blackburn North with so many bedrooms here. At 766, no body corporate. You've got your own land, ladies and gentlemen. At $766,000, you can do whatever you want. At $766,000 here. Don't have to pay driveway insurance or anything like that here. At $766,000. At $766,000, we're on the market and selling now at $766,000. You wanted to know we're on the market and selling at $766. At $766,000 here. Holding the bid. Man's holding the bid, staying next to Yang at $766. That's $766,000 on the market and selling, ladies and gentlemen. For no better bidding here today. That's $767 back in front at 7. Sorry, 68, 68, 68, 68, 69, 69 here, 69. 70 new interest across the road at 770 here. At $770,000 now new interest, which only means one thing. We're still in a great value buying zone. For 71 now, 71 back against you, Wen, at 771. 771, can I see 72? 72, thank you, sir, 771. That's 771 now. 772, we can't go backwards. At least someone's paying attention at 772. At 772 now. 73, thank you, at 773. 4, 76. 76, can I say 71? 77. At 777. That's 79. 79 now, can I say 80, sir, at 779. At $779,000. Can I see 80? At 779 at the moment. At 779. 80, sir? Thank you. I saw 80 here first. 780. 81. 81, thank you. At 781. At 781. At 781 back against you, sir. 781. At $781,000 here. At 781. At $781,000. 781, Jim, need to know when. What do you say now at 770? Sorry? 73. 83. Oh, sorry, 783, sorry. That's 783 across the road, 783. That's 783 now, when, need to know. Can I see 85? That's 785 now, standing next to Jim. 85. 4, 5, 5 here. Can I see 6, sir? That's 785. That's 785 now. That's 785 at the moment. That's 789. 89 when? Can I see 90, sir? At 789. That's 789 at the moment. 90 back in front at 790. When? What do you say? At 790 at the moment. At 790, Jim, need to know. Someone round us up to 800. Could be that knockout offer that we're looking for. At 790 at the moment. At 793. At 793. What do you say, sir? Here, left, right, centre at 793. At $793,000 across the road. My opening bid. 1, 4, 794, 95 perhaps at 794. That's $794,000 now. 95 to get you back in front. That's $794,000 now. Can I see 800? Someone round us up to 800. Lucky number 8. That's $795,000. 94. 99, 799, 800 is looming. At 800 here, bang. At $800,000, we got there in the end. At $800,000 now across the road, what do you say? At $800,000 here, saying it's the winner, at $800,000. At $800,000 now, need to know, ladies and gentlemen, at $800,000 at the moment. At $800,000, staying next to Wen, 800 here. Need to know any lucky last bids here at $800,000. We'll be selling away. As I said before, sold sticker will be slapped onto the board here today as we are on the market and selling. At $800,000 now, going to call it 3 times, so I'm sure and you're sure at $800,000. So any bids here at $800,000, all out. Thank you. At 800,000, 1,000 here, 801. At 801, Jim, need to know. Can I say 805 perhaps? At $801,000. 2,000 now, 803. At $803,000, Yang, what do you say? At 803 now. At $803,000 at the moment. At $803,000, can someone round us up to 810? At 803. At 803 at the moment. At 803 here now. Let's round us up to maybe 808, lucky number 8, at $803,000 here. At $803,000, standing next to Wen, at 803. At $803,000 now. First call now, 803. Second opportunity now at $803,000. $1,000, 804. 804 back in 805. 805 now, Yang, what do you say? At 805. At $805,000. At my previous auction, the knockout bid was a $20,000 increment. Show your competition, your made of strength here, and put a little bit of distance against your competition at $805,000 at the moment. At 805 here, staying next to Wen. Back against you, Yang, what do you say? 805. Round this up to 808 perhaps, or 810 here at $805,000. At $805,000 now, walking distance to everything that you need. 1,806. 806 now, Wen, what do you say? 2,808. At 808 now, let's go 810 ma'am, at $808,000 here. At $808,000 at 808. At 808 here. At $808,000 now, Yang, what do you say? At 808. At $808,000 here. At 808, Yang, need to know now. The ones don't seem to be working. Let's go try a different strategy here to secure the property of your dreams. With you driven here with intention to bid and purchase another 1,808. No one ever listens to me. At $809,000 to 810 now, 810. At $810,000 at the moment. At 810. At 810, Yang, what do you say? At 810. At 810 now. At 810. At 810. At 810 now. 11 to get you back in front and involved in this auction here today. At $810,000. At 810. At $810,000. The sooner you bid, ladies and gentlemen, the sooner you can go and vote and get your democracy sausage sizzle here today at $810,000. Back against you, Yang, what do you say? At 810. At $810,000. Need to know now. Gonna call 3 times. First call now, 810. Second opportunity now at 1,811. At 811 in the time. 12. 12 back in front, 812. At $812,000, need to know now, going to call it 3 times. First call now, 812. Second opportunity now at $812,000. For the third and final call now at $812,000. All done, all finished.
5,000 here.
5,017. At 817 here. 118. 818. At $818,000 at the moment. At 818. At $818,000. Could be a new bidder here. At $818,000 at the moment. At 818 now, Yang, need to know. At 818. Going to call 3 times here now. First call now at 818. Second opportunity now at $818,000. For the third and final call now at 818 now. Need to know. All out, ma'am, at $818,000. There's some instructions here. Looks like it's just between the 2 of you at the moment. Need to know. Got your permission to sell at $818,000 at the moment. All we ask for you is to leave your best on the table here today at 2A Charlton Street at $818,000 across the road. 1,019, 819. At 819, 20, 820 back in front. At $820,000 now, ma'am, what do you say? At 820 now. At $820,000, 820. You need to know at $820,000. At $820,000 here. Think about the location. and education in this location at $820,000. Here, standing next to Wen at $820. Yang, all done, all finished, all silent. Gonna knock the property down now at $820,000. At $820 now. Selling at any moment at $820,000. Need to know, going to call it 3 times at $820. First call now, $820. Second opportunity now at $820,000. For the third and final call now at $820,000. All done. All 1,821 in the nick of time at $821. At $821, $822. Get your bids out quicker at $822. At $822 now. At $822. At $822,000. You ain't need to know. At $822 now. Going to call 3 times at $822. At $822,000. Going to call 3 times. First, second, third and final call at $822,000. No pressure, ma'am. All eyes on you. Need to know at $822,000. You want to come back on another increment. Otherwise, the property will be sold to the highest bidder across the road here at $822,000. At $822.
Took a 500.
Going up in ones, man. 1,000. Minimum 1. Let's do 1. Let's go. Thank you. At $823. At $823,000 back against you, sir. At $823. At $823,000. When? What do you say? At $823 now. At $823,000 at the moment. $823 here across the road. 2,000 now, $825. $825 here, $825, gang, what do you say? At $825,000. At $825,000, let's go $830. Round even figure of $830 perhaps, at $825,000. I've said it before, $5,000 or $10,000 doesn't get you much today. With inflation going through the roof, you can't even get you a trip overseas at $825,000 across the road. At $825, ma'am. What do you say? $825, can I say a 30 to get you back in front? Another $5,000 increment? What do you say? You're not going to find another property like this. At $825, 126, $826 now, when can I see 30? $827, $827 here, across the road, $827. At $827,000, can I see 30? At $827 at the moment. At $830. 827 at the moment. Let's go lucky number 8. At 827 at the moment. 827. 827. Don't hesitate. That's how you miss out on prime real estate in Blackburn North. 827. You run the risk of paying more at future auctions, ma'am, at $827,000. Look at how many bidders there are competing for this property here today at $827,000 at the moment. 827. 827 now, Yang. Can see another bid at 827. 827 now. Let's go lucky number 8. I'm going to call 3 times now. 827. Okay. $828. $828. Thank you, ma'am. $828 now. Good bidding here. Hopefully you buy your first home at $828,000. $2,830 back in front. $830. Coming back to you straight in front at what? $830. Got to get your bids up quicker like across the road. They're showing you their strength at $830,000. Don't miss out on prime real estate today, $830. Your daughter wants the property. Let's buy it, man, at $830,000. At $830,000. At $830 here. $830, you ain't need to know. Can't hold the bid for much longer here at $830,000 at the moment. $830. All we ask is that you give it your best here at $830,000. $830. Another one. $830 here. $830,000. $830. One.
No.
One. Oh, no. Thank you. $830,000. Thank you for your participation. Hopefully we can find you another property. But it won't be at 2A Charlton Street in Blackburn North at $830,000. Going to call it final 3 more times and sell away to the highest bidder here at $830,000. First, second, third and final call now at $830,000. On behalf of the team at Buxton Real Estate, Wen Yu and I have been the listing agents for this property, and we look forward to talking to you after the auction. We're at $830,000. This property is selling. This property is selling. This prop is, put your hands together, this prop is sold. Congratulations. Commiserations to underbidders. Congratulations to our vendors. Thank you for attending another Buxton auction. Have a great weekend.